Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I usually do motorcycle reviews, but I've got some things going on in my life, kind of hindering my ability to do that. So in today's video, instead, we're going to just be doing a detailed overview on the Kawasaki Z650. Everything that I'm going to be talking about today can be applied to model years 2020 and newer. And there's even some new stuff for this model year that make it a little bit more enticing for buyers who are looking at this model. We're going to be talking about engine output, as well as brakes and the suspension, and who this bike is made for. Before we get started, if you could, please hit that subscribe button. It helps out a ton with finding people who are similar mindset to you and I, who might either just be scratching the surface of motorcycling or for the enthusiast who has a passion for it like me. And if you found this video helpful, a like would be greatly appreciated. Enough of that though, let's talk about the Z650. Let's talk about the brakes first. At the front, you'll find a dual brake setup with 300mm discs, and those are pinched between a set of Nissin 2-piston calipers. And in the rear, you've just got a single disc with a 220mm disc on a single piston caliper. This bike is available with and without ABS. Suspension up front, I'm pretty sure, is a 43mm fork. It's a standard orientation instead of inverted suspension, which I would really like to see on this bike, but it's not totally necessary because it's not exactly a high performance machine. And the rear suspension is a horizontal backlink with adjustable preload, and that's really the only adjustability you get on the suspension on this motorcycle. Transmission is a 6-speed gearbox, and the final drive is chain. This is still a very respectable engine, putting out around 67 horsepower at 8,000 RPM, and it achieves its peak torque output of 48.5 pound-foot at 6,500 RPM. And those are some respectable numbers considering the bike only tips the scales at 412 pounds wet and ready to ride. Seat height comes in at 31.1 inches, which is fairly decent, and it's actually only 0.2 inches more than the Kawasaki Z400, which is the bike that you would essentially start on before making your way up into the 650. It does have the standard Kawasaki control switches on it. There's nothing super fancy about them, but they do have some nice positive clicks, and the finish is pretty decent for an intermediate level bike at this price point. And that's another thing that we can mention is at this price point, you are getting a really nice full color TFT display. And for model years 2023 and later, you actually get traction control on this motorcycle, which I don't think is actually necessary for this caliber of a machine, but it is cool that they give it to you. If they're going to raise the price every year, at least they're giving you something that can somewhat justify those price increases. Fuel tank capacity comes in at 4 gallons. And with this motorcycle averaging anywhere between 50 and 60 miles to the gallon, we're just going to average that out and call it 55 miles per gallon. And if you're running this tank from the full 4 gallons to 0 gallons, getting it completely empty, you can theorize that you'll be able to pull around 220 miles if you squeeze every little last drop out of this tank. Most people don't do that, and they'll fill up with at least 20 to 30 miles before they're plumb empty, and their fuel light is telling them, hey, you're about to run out of gas. So for that reason, let's just safely say you can get about 180 to 190 miles out of a tank before you really need to start looking for a fuel station to fill up. Headlights and taillights are all LED, and really I love the styling of the Z. I think it's one of the better looking intermediate motorcycles that you can purchase, and Kawasaki's design language remains strong through the entire lineup. The Z400, the Z650, and the Z900 all look very similar, with small design cues here and there to let you know that each one is not the same as the last, but they are all in the Z family. A couple things that I really like about the Z650 are that it's a very practical motorcycle. You can use it for riding around town, but if you need to hit the highway and do a quick zip for, 50 to 100 miles, you can make that commute with relative ease and still have top-end passing power if you need to grab down a gear and get past a semi that's throwing a weird tailwind at you. The ergonomics of the bike are very comfortable. You're nice and upright, your feet are directly underneath of you, so you're in a pretty neutral position, and compared to a normal super sport that would otherwise have you hunched over the tank, all your weight's on your wrists, and a big arch in your back, the Z650 allows you to remain upright and comfortable for less fatigue throughout the day, which might encourage you to maybe stay in the saddle a little bit longer and ride more and master this motorcycle. And that's something that I always talk about whenever I'm selling these in the showroom of the dealership I work at. This is a bike that you can really grow into, and while the bike can outride you, the The throttle on the right is your tool to tell the bike to only go as fast as you feel comfortable with. So while it initially may sound like a bit much for a beginner to hop on because of the displacement figure, the engine layout and setup of this motorcycle is really tiered to be beginner friendly, and if it's your first bike, you could really grow into this and learn to grow with the bike rather than buying something smaller like a Z400 that you're going to outgrow fairly quickly, or at least you might feel like you'll outgrow it fairly quickly because it is so small and doesn't offer that much horsepower. Whereas this bike will provide you with much more utility for a longer amount of time while you grow into it, meaning that you'll spend less money trying to trade in or sell it and all of that other stuff that entails moving up the ladder of motorcycles as a rider. I do think there are some better options out there from other manufacturers like Yamaha, Honda, and Suzuki, but they are fairly reliable. It's a proven engine design, and they use this power plant in a lot of their other machines like the Vulcan 650, the Ninja 650. I did a review on that motorcycle, actually. You can check that out right here. And even the Versus 650. So this is definitely a proven power plant from Kawasaki. The biggest downside is that it has the lowest horsepower output in the class. The other machines in this class, like the MT-07 and the SV650, those machines are putting out upwards of 72 to 75 horsepower. And then you have the kind of unique CB650R from Honda that runs an inline 4-cylinder design, so it can rotate those pistons a little bit quicker because it's the same displacement spread across 4 cylinders instead of 2 cylinders. And for that reason, I think that bike is actually pretty fun to ride. But at the end of the day, I really can't fault the Z650 for anything other than being maybe a little boring. And the one thing, and this is such a small issue of mine, but I'm very sound oriented when it comes to motorcycles. So if it doesn't sound good, I don't really want to be seen riding it, and I don't really want to hear it. And the Z650, the Z400, and several other machines from other manufacturers use what's called a flat plane crank, and this gives it a really ricey sound if you put an exhaust on it. Have a listen. Yeah, I just don't like that. I don't like the way that sounds. It doesn't jive with what my ear is tuned for. I very, very much so prefer the sound of a 270-degree firing order like what the MT-07 offers. And I think even the SV650, since it's a V-twin, has a similar firing order to that. And I think that's an amazing sound to come out of the tailpipe of a motorcycle of any caliber. So if there's one thing that I can say, it's directly to Kawasaki. Please, for the love of all motorcycle enthusiasts, give us a cross-plane crank or change your engine layout to give a 270-degree firing order. That's all. Pricing on this machine is right in line with the other guys, starting in the upper $7,000 range before any dealer fees. So it's a competitive model. Even though it's the weakest, it does have a lot of really good features on it, and it's a very well-rounded package, and it's proven, so you know you're going to get a reliable machine, as is the case with most Japanese OEMs anyway. Yeah, that's pretty much going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to stop talking now. I hope this was helpful, and maybe I brought up a few points that you might consider if you're looking into one of these machines. Let me know what you like about this motorcycle. Put it down in the comments below. And if there's anything that I got wrong that you guys think should be corrected, put that down below too. Before we get out of here, if you guys are looking for some super sweet motorcycle merchandise that looks retro, vintage, and is quality, check out my friends over at Fogey Garage. You can use this promo code right here to get 10% off of your order. The link is in the description to go check out their store. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel for more content in the future, and also leaving a like on this video would be greatly appreciated. I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day and ride safe.